Three.
Hi, this is Jack Daulton.
And Roz Ho.
We're in the jungle, Roz, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Still in the country of Laos in Southeast Asia, and we're in northern Laos, near the city of Luang Prabang, but literally in the jungle. And we've made pilgrimage to this jungle site to pay homage to the great explorer and naturalist Henri Mouhot. Of course, Henri Mouhot is famous the world over for his detailed descriptions and exploration of the site of Angkor in Cambodia, the capital of the ancient Khmer kingdom.
In fact, he was popularly known as the discoverer of Angkor, which is, of course, not quite true, because there were other European travelers who came to Angkor, but he did actually publish very detailed descriptions and, in fact, drawings of Angkor in both English and French after his death, which really popularized and fired up the public's imagination about Angkor.
Yeah, there were other explorers who came to the site of Angkor before Henri Mouhot. In the 16th century, the 17th century, even in the 19th century, Frenchmen had been to Angkor before Mouhot, but none of them had written about Angkor, or none of them had written about it in a detailed, scientific way. In any case, Roz, maybe we should say a few words, spend some time talking about the life of this interesting figure, this Renaissance man, Henri Mouhot. He was born in Montbéliard, France, near the Swiss border in 1826. And his father was a government administrator. His mother was a teacher. He had a classical education. And at the age of 18, he did something really extraordinary, didn't he?
Yes, he went to live in Russia. I think he had got a post as a language teacher. So he went to St. Petersburg, was it?
Yeah, he taught in St. Petersburg, Russia, at a military academy, taught French.
Yes, and he lived there for about 10 years, traveling all over Europe.
Yeah, from Warsaw to the Crimea. He covered Russia and Poland and other parts of Europe. So he showed from a very early age this interest in travel, an interest in the world around him. You know, Roz, while Mouhot was in Russia, he learned the techniques of photography that had been pioneered in the 1830s by Louis Daguerre. And Mouhot became an accomplished photographer.
Right. In fact, I believe he made his living at some point selling these photographs of well-known people and wealthy people.
And also well-known sites in Europe. In any case, after spending 10 years more or less in Russia as a teacher, he moved back to France. And then in 1854, he and his brother Charles moved to England, Jersey in England. And in 1856, Mouhot married there the granddaughter of Mungo Park, the great Scottish explorer of Africa. And that's extraordinary, isn't it, that he has this contact, this connection, Mouhot, with an earlier lineage of explorers in Great Britain.
Yeah, but he obviously showed from a very young age interest in exploration.
Yeah, he was apparently an avid reader, and in 1857 a book was published in England, in English, about Siam, the Kingdom of Siam, or Thailand in Southeast Asia. And he read that book and first learned about Southeast Asia, and it ignited an interest in him to go to Southeast Asia to do exploration of his own, to collect zoological and botanical specimens. And in fact, in 1857, he did leave. He sailed for Southeast Asia.
Right, and he was in Bangkok, I think, for a few months preparing for his expeditions. And in fact, he did 4 successive expeditions. The first one in going to Ayutthaya,
The old capital of Siam. And we should say that on these expeditions, he had the stamp of approval of the Royal Geographical Society of England. In any case, as you said, Roz, he did 4 more or less expeditions with Bangkok as his base. After he went to Ayutthaya in 1859 to 1860, he went into Cambodia. In 1860, he reached Angkor, spent 3 weeks there,
right?
Took detailed notes, drew drawings. He was a great draftsman.
Yeah, I've seen some of those drawings, and they're really very lively and detailed and really interesting. I could see how that fired up the public's imagination back in the 1800s.
And then he did another expedition into Thailand, and then finally in 1860, he did an expedition into what is now northeast Thailand and the country of Laos. And he was the first European to explore those areas, the first European to reach Luang Prabang. In any case, it's in Luang Prabang that he met his demise. On October 19th, 1861, he came down suddenly with a fever, probably malaria.
Yeah, actually that was after living here for about 3 months.
He wrote his last entry in his journal on October 29th, 1861. And it was something like, oh my God, please have pity on me. Something terrible. He was obviously in desperate straits, and he never recovered. On November 10th, 1861, after 3 days of delirium, he died.
At the age of 35.
You know, another tragic figure in the heroic age of archaeology. This period that began in 1798 with the French conquest of Egypt, Napoleon's conquest of Egypt, and the scientific study of the Egyptian antiquities that extended all the way through the 19th century to 1922, more or less, with Howard Carter's discovery of the tomb of King Tut. During this period, exploration and archaeology was very dangerous. One's life was at peril, and many of these early explorers and archaeologists met their demise just like Henri Mouhot.
Yeah, die of various fevers or accidents, or even, you know, some violent
ends, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, another tragic figure, as I said, in the heroic age of archaeology. His 2 servants then buried him on this spot where he died, and they took his possessions, his collections, and his journals back to Bangkok, where they were then given to the Royal Geographical Society in England.
And where they eventually were published.
Yeah, in 1863, the reports of his explorations of Southeast Asia, especially his exploration of Angkor, were published in French, and then in 1864 they were published in English. And as you said, Roz, that fired the popular imagination about the site of Angkor in particular, and led to further exploration of the site and study of the site. In fact, many people attribute to Mouhot indirectly the preservation and conservation of Angkor, the great condition it now finds itself in the early 21st century.
So let's finish by talking a little bit about this monument.
Right. In 1867, another French explorer, the leader of the French Mekong expedition, Dudar-Legret, came to this site, and he put the first memorial here, memorial to Henri Mouhot. Unfortunately, there was a flood of the Khan River. This burial site is on the banks of the Khan River in the jungle. There was a flood of the river, and that memorial was washed away. It was not until 1887 that a subsequent French explorer, with the financial support of France and the land granted by the Lao king, erected the monument we see here today. And in 1951, much later, the French School of the Far East restored the monument.
And apparently it was sort of lost again, or cover over.
Yeah.
And then in 1990, it was rediscovered, and the creation of this nice monument and the cleaning up of the site was actually funded by his hometown.
The city of Montbéliard in France. You know, I think it's so ironic, Roz. During the period between the 1950s and in 1990, the period of great conflict in this part of the world, Mouhot's tomb was overcome by the jungle, overgrown by the jungle, and lost, much as the ancient monuments he explored had been, so to speak, lost for centuries.
Well, it just shows the power of the jungle and how quickly it could just grow over man's buildings.
Exactly. So let's end now, Roz, with just a few comments about the legacy of Henri Mouhot. You know, Henri Mouhot, as we've already said, he conducted the first detailed study of the site of Angkor, the first scientific study meticulously recording what he saw, and he did that in every area he explored in Southeast Asia. Fortunately, after his death, his journals were published posthumously, and they spurred the world interest in this site, a site that had been largely forgotten outside of Southeast Asia up until then. You know, and as I said, the French thereafter continued the study and conservation of these monuments, as did the Laos, and these monuments have come down to us in relatively good shape because of the efforts of those people. So we owe a debt to Henri Mouhot in that respect, even though he did not discover Angkor, as is sometimes said.
Yes, another one of the explorers that we admire.
Yeah, and so it's quite a privilege to finally make it here to Henri Mouhot's tomb. You and I have been to Angkor many times, and of course he's the most famous figure associated with Angkor, the most famous European. And so to be here is quite a privilege and an honor, and we pay him respect today. Thank you very much.